Hello and welcome back. He is Matt Glatson. I'm Alexandra Cox, and today we are talking about the highly anticipated Texas-Georgia game. It is somehow week 8 of college football, and the top-ranked Longhorns will host the 5th-ranked Bulldogs for the first time in the regular season since 1958. We got one of the best rivalries in all of college football last week, and now we get a game that feels like it will end up becoming a massive rivalry over the years. But before we talk about Saturday, let's talk about the Horns' performance last weekend in Dallas. Matt, what improvements did you see from Texas during the Red River Showdown?
I think it probably has to start with the way they were able to stop the run. They held Oklahoma to 2.3 yards per carry, which was great. They had some holes against Mississippi State. I felt like overall the stats didn't really bear that out, but I thought Mississippi State was able to get a few big runs in there. And they were able to pretty much shut those down outside of a little, quarterback scramble here or there from Michael Hawkins Jr. So I thought that was great to see the interior defensive line sort of dominate that game. Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill both had tremendous games as well. They really got after the quarterback. And they're going to need to do all that stuff against Georgia. So it was nice to see from them a week out. And I also thought they ran the ball extremely well. Quintravion Wisner had a great game, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But, they really just kind of did everything. And, Quinn Ewers, I thought also really bounced back from a sluggish start as well. So really, for me, it was just them kind of knocking the rust off from the bye week and fixing a few little issues here and there they had the week prior, and I think they were able to do all that. It was good to see.
Absolutely. So, like you mentioned, one of the bigger storylines going into the Red River Showdown was the fact that Quinn Ewers would be making his big return after almost a month of not playing due to injury. He was a little bit sluggish to begin with, but then he got back into the rhythm. Can you speak a little bit about his comeback and his ability to stay calm and eventually even out some of those kinks from earlier?
Yeah, there are a couple plays where he kind of floated a ball that got intercepted early on. He missed a couple of throws that I think he normally would make. He was kind of hesitant a little early on. I think that was just kind of getting used to the speed of the game again because he had been out for almost a month. And that can happen to any quarterback. I didn't really think too much of it at the time. I thought he would settle himself down, and he did. They got some easy throws for him early after that interception, some screens, some short things. He did a good job of checking the ball down when he had pressure in his face. And it just kind of, is a testament to how experienced he is as a quarterback because a lot of times when a quarterback struggles early on like that, it can kind of get in their head and they can start making rash decisions and they can, start throwing interceptions or making, runs when they shouldn't run and fumbling the ball, things like that. So he just stayed cool, calm, and collected, and he led the team. He didn't get rattled, and I think it was good for him to get back in there ahead of this Georgia game where he's might not face a better defense statistically, but it's a much more athletic defense, I feel like, and one that has an extreme amount of talent, even though they've given up some points this year. So I really think that he's going to have a good game on Saturday.
Yeah. So after all the injuries to the running back room, there were questions about who would step up and if Texas could get the ground game really going. And last weekend, like you said, it was sophomore Quintravion Wisner. He ran for 118 yards on 13 carries and one touchdown. And it was a career day for him in one of the Horns' biggest games to date. What did you see from Trey, and how does having someone like him step up in a massive game like that with a lot of pressure on them help this offense?
I'm glad you asked that because I don't want to talk about him for a few weeks. He kind of I don't want to say he came out of nowhere because they've
You
always been
you've been
very high on
hyping
him.
Trey up since preseason, so you've been a day one.
Yeah, and I think that when Cedric Baxter got hurt, everybody was kind of panicking, and then Christian Clark got hurt, and everybody was kind of panicking. And Steve Sarkisian did a really great job of building up that running back room through recruiting, and Contravian Reisner is no exception to that. He's a fantastic player. He's very shifty. He runs very hard. My favorite thing about him is that it always seems like he's falling forward, and he's always running like his hair is on fire. Maybe that can have its negative effects here and there, but so far it really hasn't. And I think that he just did a great job of providing the spark when Texas needed it because their offense was kind of sluggish in the very beginning. I think they had 13 yards or something on their first three drives. They had three straight 3-and-outs and the interception, and it was looking pretty rough. And then they started handing the ball to him, and things kind of started to calm down. And the offensive line obviously did a great job blocking for him. But there were a couple runs there where he really did a great job of kind of being patient and letting the play develop in front of him and hitting the hole that opened up as opposed to just running straight into the hole like a whole lot of young running backs usually do. So I think that's. I'm not saying that Jaden Blue is guilty of that either. It's just that Trey seemed like the more patient of the running backs in that sense, and he's obviously a different style than Jaden Blue. And Jaden Blue is more of a speed edge guy, and but Trey can kind of do it all, and his size might not dictate that necessarily, or sort of it's not really expected, but the way that he runs the football is just really fun to watch. They don't run the exact same way, but he kind of reminds me of Isaiah Pacheco from the Chiefs, who just looks like he's running as fast as he possibly can, as hard as he possibly can, every play and every time he touches the ball.
Yeah.
And I just kind of get that vibe from Trey, and I think it's a good sort of mix into the running back room, and it's really paid off so far, especially last week.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to keep talking about the offense, but we're going to switch teams. Carson Beck is likely the best quarterback the Horns have faced all season. He has the experience in big games. He's good under pressure, and he's coming off of a historic amount of yards last weekend against Mississippi State. What will need to be done in order to disrupt Beck and create hesitation for him?
I mean, I don't think it's a question. He definitely is the best quarterback they've faced all year. It's
Trying to be
that's
polite.
yeah. I mean, that's the one thing that Texas has not really been tested by this year's quarterback play. From day one, it just hasn't been good. Before this, the best quarterback they faced was probably the Colorado State guy, Fowler Nicosi, who we've seen kind of what they are now. They were a little bit overhyped, a lot by their own doing going into the season, but um, you know Carson Beck was a Heisman Trophy contender coming into the year. He's definitely a candidate to be the number one draft pick in the NFL next year or next spring. So it's going to be a real challenge. He can do it all. He can throw. He can make every throw that you can think of. He can put zip on it. He can put touch on it. He can make the deep throw. He can make the intermediate throw. He can sort of kind of move up. He can do things on the move. He can uh, sort of improvise and really do every little thing that you're looking for in a quarterback. So I think that the only way that Texas can really affect him is to get pressure on him, which is kind of cliche to say, but it's what they're good at right now. They have a lot of good edge rushers. Colin Simmons has really come on strong. Trey Moore is looking for his first big game. He's played well. The stats haven't been there, but he's been affecting the game, which is good to see. So they're going to have to get pressure on him from all kinds of different ways. They're going to have to try and confuse him in the secondary a little bit, which they've also been good at. I mean, they have the number one pass defense in the country for a reason. It's not just because they played bad quarterbacks. It's because their defensive backs have played very well. So if they're able to get pressure on him, a lot like Alabama was able to do early in that game before Georgia just started airing it out, I think that'd be a good start. It's just it's really hard to say if there is a true way of slowing a quarterback that talented down, especially with how confident he's playing right now. So that'll probably be the X factor in the overall game, honestly.
Absolutely. So it's been mentioned by just about everyone. This Georgia program has become the standard of college football. They won back-to-back national championships. They had a record amount of players drafted. People are saying Kirby Smart is the next Nick Saban. I think we've heard it all, and rightfully so. They're a great team. It's clear that they have the advantage with the big game experience. And yes, I know experience can only take you so far, but that oftentimes can take teams out of the game before they even kick off. Can you speak on the mindset Texas will need and possibly even take against a team like this?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because everybody talks about Georgia having this big game experience, and it's absolutely true. The problem is this current Georgia team with Carson Beck at quarterback and Trevor Etienne at running back and Dominic Lovett at wide receiver and all those guys in particular don't have the big game experience necessarily advantage over Texas. Texas made the college football playoff last year. They won a conference championship. They played Alabama in Alabama. They played against a really good Oklahoma team and damn near won that game. And they almost won the college football playoff and played Michigan in the national title. Georgia, to their credit, the only team that they've lost to, which in the last decade it seems like, is Alabama. And there's a reason for that. Because they have Kirby Smart. They're a very prepared football team. They have an extreme amount of talent. Everybody talks about Ohio State having the most talented roster in the country. Georgia's very close. And Texas is right up there too, but Georgia is right there. They recruit 5-star after 5-star after 5-star. But in terms of the experience, I don't know that Georgia, with their current roster, can say they really have that much more than Texas at this point. And when you have two teams that are that good and that are that talented and that have been in those kinds of games with experienced quarterbacks, it really just becomes kind of a slugfest. And each team's going to get their play. Both teams are going to hit their plays. Both teams are going to make big plays. Steve Sarkisian talked about it today. Actually, it's kind of like a boxing match. It's not about who makes the big play necessarily. It's about, okay, how does the team respond to getting hit in the mouth? And I think Texas has done a really good job of that this year when they have been tested early in games. They take the other team's best shot, and then they're like, okay, here's our best shot. And then they throw a haymaker and the game's over before you know it. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case against Georgia, but it's going to be a battle of who can play the next play better, who can take the big shots and keep on going. And what was really impressive about Georgia that Sark also pointed out today is that they took a beating from Alabama early in that game. They were able to fight and claw their way back, and they didn't back down and they didn't fold. And they were a couple of plays away from a massive comeback and winning that game against a very good football team. So one of the things that Texas is going to have to do is if they do get out to a lead, they're going to have to realize, okay, Georgia's not going to be afraid. They're going to keep coming at us. They're not going to fold, especially because Georgia's back is up against the proverbial wall. If they lose another game, they very well could miss out on the college football playoff entirely. And when you start the season ranked number 1 and you miss the college football playoff, it's brutal. But if you do that 2 seasons in a row, that's even worse.
Yeah.
So they're going to be fighting hard, and Texas is going to be in for a real dogfight. And it's just going to be a matter of, in my opinion, it's going to be which team has the ball last in this game. So it should be a hell of a show.
Okay, so you don't think the name behind Georgia will at all affect Texas?
No, I don't, because I think that they've seen it already. They went into Alabama last year and they dominated Alabama. And yeah, they lost Washington in the college football playoff, but they're not afraid of the big stage. Quinn Ewers doesn't care who's lining up across from him. None of those players care anymore who's lining up across from him. In years past, that was absolutely the case. Texas has been a deer in headlights many times before in the past, since the end of the Mac Brown era. And I think what they're finally back to now is that kind of mentality they had back in 2005, 2008, 2009, where they don't care who's lining up across from them. They just want a piece of them, and they want to prove they're better. They're a unified team, and I don't think that there's going to be anything that they see on Saturday that they're not prepared for.
Yeah, for sure. And like you've said over and over again, Coach Sarkisian has always said rankings don't matter. None of the hype matters. It's about what you do on Saturday. So, I mean, like you said, I agree with you. I think Texas is ready, and I think the players are so mature that they aren't saying, "Oh my gosh, Georgia, they have 2 national championships, blah 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 blah." Okay, so fill in the blank. Texas will win if
Texas wins if Quinn Ewers plays like Quinn Ewers. And what I mean by that is if he plays like the quarterback we saw against Michigan, if he plays like the quarterback we saw against Alabama last year, against Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship, in the second half against Washington last year, in the big games or in clutch moments, he has shown time and time again that he's able to make the right play, make the big play, hit his receivers when it matters, make the right decisions. And if he plays that way, and Texas is able to sort of at least slow down Georgia offensively, I don't think that they're going to stop Georgia. I don't think this is going to be another time where they're giving up 3, 6, 13 points. This is going to be a shootout, in my opinion, even though it's two very good defenses. And if they're able to do that and Quinn Ewers plays like Quinn Ewers, I think Texas wins.
Okay, Georgia will win if.
Georgia will win if Carson Beck has his best game of the season, maybe of his career, and they're able to run the football. They have not been a good running team this year. It's kind of made them one-dimensional, and their defense has sort of gotten tired, I think, as a result. I think they've been on the field a little bit too much. They're also a young defense, too. But I think the more that they can control the game and keep Carson Beck on the field making plays and keep that defense that has been susceptible to some big plays this year against Alabama and against Mississippi State, I think that that's probably the best chance.
Okay, and what is your score prediction?
I've been kind of going back and forth on this, and I might change it before I publish our score predictions tomorrow. Right now, it's a field goal game for me. I don't think Texas covers. I've got somewhere around 34, 31, 31, 28 Texas. I don't feel real good about that because, we haven't seen Texas play a team to Georgia's caliber yet this season. So we'll see how, that all goes. But right now that's kind of where I'm sitting.
Okay, all right. Thank you. All right, well, your top-ranked Longhorns will face fifth-ranked Bulldogs on Saturday at DKR at 6:30. Thank you so much for watching.